You're a Jedi.
So first, I know you've been a big Star Wars fan since you were a kid yourself. Now that you actually had the opportunity to be in a Star Wars show, what surprised you most about what it takes to tell a Star Wars story on screen?
Gosh, I suppose the attention to detail. There are real guidelines and specifics of what makes even the movement of the camera a Star Wars shot. What's allowed, what isn't allowed. And I love that it is still somewhat linked back, if not directly at least, to the originals and the limitations, but also obviously the imagination of where the originals were born. So yeah, that attention to detail, that specific kind of rule book was a wonderful thing to learn.
That is like top tier importance right there. I love that you mentioned that, turning that towards your personal performance. Whenever you're in a Star Wars project, you know, as a fan, there's great pressure. So do you remember the very first moment you did something and kind of stopped and said to yourself, like, I belong here, I belong in Star Wars?
Gosh, I mean, if I'm honest, I still, the jury's out in that, you know, a huge part of this universe is its fan base and the passion that they have for it. And as an actor, the jury's always out until an audience have seen you and either give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So really, I'm kind of just curious to hear and get a sense of how he's received. I think there was a moment a couple of weeks in where I suddenly felt more comfortable in my skin because there's a slight swagger to Jod. And just feeling that and feeling at ease in the costume was the first time I sort of thought, okay, I've got this character down and he feels plausible. But no, in truth, I'm still waiting to hear that those who really care and really matter like him.
Another thing I have to highlight right now is the young ensemble around you. They are just absolutely exceptional. So you are very experienced, you come to set, and I'm sure you could bring a lot of knowledge to them, but what I love about rising actors in this industry is with each new generation comes like a new set of skills, a new approach to acting. So even for you with all your experience, what's something you saw them do that I guess like energized you in a new way as an artist?
It's a rather obvious answer, but it was just their absolute pleasure and joy at everything that was coming their way, whether it was even a challenging scene, a dark scene, an upsetting scene. It was such a good reminder that this is a wonderful art form. It's a privilege to be able to do it. And this particular piece needed that sort of playful tone to keep it alive and to, not take itself too seriously. And I wonder, I feel like that needs to apply to most of the stuff we make. Even if you're making something gritty and hard, it's like, it is a play area, you know. We're toying with our imaginations in order to stimulate other people's imagination.
Well, I'll build on that with a question for you personally. I've gotten a little obsessed with asking this question because recently I was talking to a director who was just like, so thrilled with the fact that his cast and crew had so much joy on his set telling their story together. So making Skeleton Crew, can you isolate the single day or moment on set when you felt the most joy as an actor and maybe also as a Star Wars fan?
Gosh, very hard to single out a day. And suddenly my head is a blur of so many memories where, you know, it was just fun to be there at work. And I think working early on, working with the puppeteers and really feeling like we got an interaction sort of natural with me and SM33 was really exciting because it was a whole new kind of acting. I'd never really worked with puppeteers before like that, at that level, and with a character who was present, but at the same time being manipulated by all these other people. I think probably several times in the cockpit of our ship, with the kids and goofing around, and there's a chase sequence when Neil's at the controls and we're kind of slipping and sliding all over the place. That kind of stuff was great fun to do.
I found something buried in the woods. What do you think it is? I I think it's a lost Jedi temple.
I'm starting with 2 fun group questions. First, for each of you, if you could see your Skeleton Crew character team up with another Star Wars character of your choice, who would you pick and why?
Han Solo.
I'm either gonna say Luke Skywalker or Ahsoka, because Rosario Dawson, who plays Ahsoka, is amazing, and also Ahsoka's so cool. And I see Wim and Luke getting along so well. I see a lot of Luke in Wim, and I was kind of, when I was getting familiar with my character Wim, I was thinking of Luke in the back of my mind, and that really helped. It was fun bringing aspects of Luke into my Wim performance.
I could totally see that. I could totally see Neil hanging out with Han Solo.
My only thing though is Neil's more of a scared character and he's more like adventurous. So that's probably my dream character to hang out with. But I think if I had to choose Neil, I'd probably go C-3PO, just because they kind of are similar personalities.
Those vibes match.
But then they would never go on an adventure because they're both scared, you know.
For Fern, I also felt like Han Solo was kind of like Fern in many ways, in preparation for her, and I took a lot of things from him and built it into her character. So I'd either pick him or Mandalorian. I feel like those are both
that's good. That's good.
yes.
Or Baby Yoda.
Grogu, I would love to see that.
I picked Mandalorian too because I feel like we're kind of similar because we both have our little visor and he's very strong, and so I feel like we would make a good
And you're
duo.
very strong.
Yeah, we're both very kind of robotic. I don't know.
I like all of that. As though I'm not greedy enough wanting the rest of the episodes of your show. Now I want to see them explore other characters well beyond it. So my other big group question here was, let's say you, as in real you, not your characters, you are all the crew of a starship. I want to know who would assume each crew position. I have some handy from Rise of the Resistance. Do you know them?
I think I would probably be the pilot or the shooter.
I think I'd be the one who pressed the big green button and sets us all into space. No, I actually don't know. I feel like I could be a good co-pilot with my buddy Roberto over here.
What would we be, curious?
My man!
I don't know. Honestly, being a shooter would be really
I think that would be so much fun.
That'd be
It
so
would be like a video game.
Yeah, exactly. Like be on that little
one,
cube and be like
actually.
pew pew pew.
You have such a full crew coming together now. I can picture all of this happening. So digging into Star Wars a little more seriously now, for each of you, whether it was making Skeleton Crew or something that happened before, can you each tell me about the moment when you first fell in love with Star Wars?
I don't even know if I could pinpoint an exact moment because I've grown up with Star Wars my entire life. My entire phone background was Star Wars themed. Before I even got the job, when people call me, it's the Star Wars main theme song, and when people text me, it's do or do not, there is no try.
What was the phone background?
The phone background, it was Luke Skywalker with Yoda on his back. That was the phone background. I kid you not, but I've always been a fan my whole life.
Good stuff.
I think something that made me really kind of fall in love with it was just seeing the lightsabers for the first time and being like, wow, that is pretty cool. And because I honestly think the lightsabers is one of the coolest weapons in sci-fi history, you know?
I think the first time was when I was I went downstairs at our rental house and my whole family was crowded together on our temporary couch watching Star Wars for the first time, and that was really special because I got to see everyone together and I got to see Princess Leia. I love her so much. I mentioned her so
diva.
much, but I love her.
Your show is going to bring families together. One of the things I keep saying is I really appreciate the fact that it speaks to me as a longtime Star Wars lover, but I know with certainty that I'll be able to share it with my young cousins and my niece and
definitely.
nephews when they're ready.
That's what's so special about Star Wars. It's for anyone.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Especially this show, too.
In Skeleton Crew, the adventure is so fun. The journey is so much fun, and it's a good introduction for younger generations, and for older generations it's fun because we played into a lot the old 80s Amblin, Goonies, E.T. style. And so there's something so relatable about each character that I think someone will find something that really speaks to them. And I really loved watching A New Hope with my dad, and I was so young, but now looking back, I see so much of myself in Luke Skywalker, and I think that's really what drew me to it, was Luke, watching him, run around with a lightsaber. He's so iconic. There's something, whenever I think of sci-fi, I think of Star Wars, and that's why I think it's so iconic.
Yeah, they definitely kind of Star Wars really kind of created the name sci-fi.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a pinnacle of the genre. I 100% get that. So bringing it onto your set specifically now, do you each remember the very first moment on set when you kind of felt like you were in a galaxy far, far away, where you were standing there, you were maybe wearing your costume, and the real world just melted away and you were fully enveloped by this world?
Honestly, just watching all the aliens walking around, and the Jawas.
Oh my gosh.
The Jawas. It was crazy.
I ran over to my dad.
It
I
was
was like, you have to see this
It was
right now.
so funny because there was a bunch of aliens just casually walking around, and it was even more funny. Like when we went to craft services to get food, just seeing them like aliens getting Doritos or something. It was
it was like,
it was
just casually walking
funny.
around.
just
full
eating
alien.
some Welch's or something. It
Because
was like,
there wasn't much for the aliens. There wasn't much like in post CGI involved. It was mainly all the prosthetics. They were wearing all the prosthetics made by Legacy VFX, who makes amazing Star Wars effects, and it's crazy.
Their eyes would like blink and move.
Yeah,
they had
they would actually work.
expressions.
They would actually work. It was
Eyes
crazy.
in this show are just wild. Like, in particular, Neil's
Neil's
eyes.
Yes!
Neil's facial expressions make me laugh every
like
time.
every time he screams, like the trunk goes up, my eyebrows go up, my eyes widen, my ears go up. Like it's so
good.
crazy.
It's so funny.
Oh, I'm going to come back to those specifics in a moment. But first, I still need the moment where the real world melted away and you were in Star Wars.
I just remember just seeing so many like creatures and stuff, and I just remember one thing I do remember is like one of them at Crafty, and I just remember them like grabbing like a can of Coke and just being like, like he was just like, all right, yeah, checks out.
Anytime I was on the volume, I felt like the world just melted away and I was in Star Wars because it's so realistic. It's crazy. Like, there's one time you like ran into the. You ran into.
Oh yeah, I did that too. I did that too.
So bad. It was really bad. I know it was. I went on the edge of the stage because I thought that you could just keep going forever and ever, and then I just. Woo! And then I just walked
You know
off.
what? They
It was
like
something,
put items
alright.
inside of the volume as well, so you can't really tell what's
Yeah, it gives it, like,
in
dimension
real
and
life,
volume, and
what's
it's
in, like a screen.
This is the effect it's supposed to have. So I'll end with this one question here. I'm not going to imply that you stole anything from set, but given the fact that I love collecting props myself, if you had the opportunity to take one single thing home from the Skeleton Crew set, what would you pick
Must
and
be
why?
right.
Oh, good pick.
Speeder bike.
My my speeder bike. Yeah.
I have a little secret. So the entire show, like literally the entire time we were shooting, I was like, I just want my jacket so bad because it's so cool. It like flips and reverses into like a normal school uniform, and then I flip it inside out. And it becomes this like really edgy and fun jacket. I'm like, I have to keep this. Like, I really hope I can. And Disney is like really strict. Like, you can't really take it home unless we're doing reshoots or for the next season. But I got one of my jackets.
Although I would probably want to keep my overalls. That's the one thing.
I would keep my Oggs and my visor. I want to be me for Halloween.
I know.
It was gonna be your costume.
Well, seriously, next year I would not be surprised if I saw all these characters around town for Halloween. Just delightful. This made me so happy. I needed it right now. Thank you all so
Oh,
much.
thank you so much.
Be warned of booby traps, pirates, and mountains where none dare to go.
If you hear this, don't give up. No matter what.
My first question for you both is figuring out the right time period to set the show. What is it about the New Republic that you thought would best serve the ideas and themes you wanted to explore here?
I mean, the New Republic is still building up, you know? They have their challenges, so it's actually still, we interpret it as kind of still a pretty lawless time. And there's a lot of danger out in space. And so it was a perfect setting for kids who get lost and don't necessarily have someone to save them.
Yeah, it feels like a dangerous, surprising time to get lost in the galaxy if you're 10.
Getting those vibes so far.
Yeah.
I'm curious for both of you, is there any particular past, show, film, book, you name it, that you found yourself referring back to or leaning on the most while making Skeleton Crew?
It's a funny thing because we never really sat down and said, these are the influences, this is what we're drawing from. You know, all the movies that people see the references are just like sort of in our DNA. You know, like, is there anything that we like went back to a lot?
I mean, there's certain things for certain places, you know, like Atten, there's some ET in the suburb there. But, when you go to other planets, there's like other things we're pulling on that are because they're new places.
Yeah. I mean, we would go back to, it's the most obscure thing is that we'd always go back to these like old pirate movies from like the 30s. That was like, I think maybe one of the more surprising references that helped us like figure out pirate codes. And, like, what are
and the pirates that feel Star Warsy, because so many other Star Wars references originally are like old movies, like old samurai movies or old World War II movies. And the pirate movies are right there, and they fit right in.
Yeah, it's a very rich genre to draw from.
I want to ask about this ensemble because it took me like mere minutes of screen time to just fall head over heels for all of them. So big two-part question about casting them. Of all the key roles in this show, which was the easiest to cast where like the right person just magically appeared, but then also which role was the most difficult to find the right fit for?
They all took a long time.
But it's kind of both. It was like easy and difficult because we're sifting through, we're seeing a bunch of really talented, amazing kids, but we always just needed them to, you kept saying that like the character would just walk in the room.
Yeah. Because you see someone who's really good, but they're not right. They're not the character yet. And when you cast kids, you cast them to be themselves in a way, not to play a role. So for us, it was just sort of waiting until the character walked in, which is a strange way.
And then that decision was really easy once we saw them.
Yeah, when they walk in that it's obvious.
They are just utterly delightful. I love all of them. And then I also love Jude and his role. And that does kind of feel like the type of role that heavily defines a show depending on which actor you pick for it. Yeah. So what was it about him that wasn't only right for that character, but was right for the vibe of the show that you wanted to establish?
I made a weird connection recently where I was like, the special editions came out in 1997. And also, that's when Gattaca came out, and like that was the first time I ever saw Jude Law. So I think in my brain, those two things like got like melted together.
He seems very Star Warsy already.
Where he feels like he was already in Star Wars, and we just discovered, we just put him back.
Yeah, and like we wanted to feel like he was a like legacy character that we were referencing.
Yeah,
like he had been in the comics or the novels or something. We just wanted him to just feel like he was so like had so many layers and past adventures. And that these kids running into him was the craziest thing.
Yeah, he stepped into it like he's been doing it his whole life.
Yeah. Oh, I'd believe that. I'm also always here for a Gattaca connection, so I appreciate that. I am very curious now to hear about your experience adding to the Star Wars franchise versus the Marvel franchise. I'll give you a big two-part question about that. What is something about adding to the Spider-Man film series that came in handy while making Skeleton Crew? But then also, what is something about making this show that, proved to be wholly different, a very unique challenge for you?
Yeah, it's actually very different because Spider-Man, you're working with a pre-existing character. So you have a framework for who this character is, where they came from, their backstory, and you've seen, versions of that done by other people before you. This is just a universe that exists, and all the characters in it are characters that we're creating from scratch. So it's a very different thing where you're just trying to figure out more like what makes something feel Star Wars, as opposed to what would Peter Parker do, like based on, the comics. I
want to go back to the directors here because this roster is just wildly impressive. Yeah. What was it like assembling this particular team and then also figuring out who suited which episode best?
Yeah, selfishly, it was just sort of, we made a list of kind of all of our favorite directors who had enough experience either with kids or with visual effects or like some sort of combination of the two. And everyone we asked was available and said yes. And then it was fun to just, assign people to different episodes, just like looking at what they've done and figuring out who would be best where. Like it
really lined up really well.
Because like David Lowery, for example, had literally just made a thing about a bunch of kids in Jude Law and pirates. And so it's like, I think maybe he should do the one with Jude Law.
I was almost afraid that he wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, we thought maybe he would be like, I just did that. Perfect. Yeah.
I remember his great passion for that source material. So it made all the sense in the world to me that he would want to do it again here, but different.
Yeah.
One thing I'm really curious about with this show, and it's something that I'm really appreciating thus far, is how it feels like it is appealing to a younger viewer than most live-action Star Wars films and shows have given us. So what is the key to welcoming more people into this fandom, younger people, but while also serving the existing fan base who has been with it for the very beginning or the large majority of their lives?
Yeah, I think it's what we're able to do is show a group of kids who are essentially experiencing the Star Wars galaxy for the first time. So because we're seeing it through their eyes, if you've never seen Star Wars before, this can very easily be the first Star Wars thing you ever see because you don't have to know anything.
Yeah, like those kids are
going into
supposed to be lost and
Yeah,
confused.
because your main characters in the show also don't know anything about Star Wars. But if you do know a lot about Star Wars, there's a lot of layers that exist in the show that give you a different appreciation of what we're doing, hopefully. So we're hoping it's something that kind of everyone can watch together.
As someone who's been watching since she was very young, I appreciate that. But the enthusiasm it leaves me with to share it with like my young cousins and eventually my niece and nephews,
Great.
it makes me very happy. I'll leave you two with a tease question. Okay. What single episode of Skeleton Crew are you most looking forward to fans getting to see, and can you tease why?
Ooh.
I mean, mine is the episode 8.
Well, I just want to see if everyone likes how it ends.
Because that's like the highest stakes move for us to pull off.
Yeah, and it also kind of asks a lot of questions as well.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see the fandom and how they respond to that.